Ladies first, we want to say welcome to our media panel this morning with Roxy Tyler. She's with our news partner, WOKV.
Thank you.
And also Fred Matthews. He's a blogger for Examiner.com. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
All right, Fred, I know that you had a few things that you wanted to start off right off the bat with the mayor's business dealings this week. We're talking about Mayor Alvin Brown, of course, specifically the pension.
Well, I mean, what I've cited, and I wrote about this past week, is a trend, it appears, that Mayor Brown is engaged in, and that's involving a bit of secrecy. Granted, deals tend to work better in secret and private, but when it comes to the pension fund and how much money has been put into it, and I'm not saying that the deal that has been announced is a bad deal at all, but I think when you're dealing in this amount of public dollars, some public observation of what took place should have taken place, and that always causes persons to be concerned about it. The same thing occurred, of course, in his negotiations or with the Jaguars, having to do with the determination as to who was going to represent the city facilities. Was it going to be SMG or Global Spectrum? Global Spectrum was the company that was approved by the city's own procurement office, but because of a contract deal, the Jaguars had input into that deal, and all of a sudden we find that trips to New York and trips to Miami with the former mayor of New Orleans involved gave us SMG. And I think it's just a disturbing trend that we should not have.
Roxy, any response to that?
Well, I agree with Fred in that sense that it does seem like there's a lot going on behind closed doors, and it does leave people to think what kind of wheeling and dealing could be going on there. We still haven't really gotten a whole lot of answers about his restructuring, the mayor's restructuring of his office as to who's doing what, and there's a lot of unfilled positions right now. So it kind of piqued my interest to where this has been an issue, this pension issue has been going on for a long time through several mayors, and now all of a sudden we have a deal, and we have several deals all at once, 1, 2, 3, and it makes you wonder exactly what was promised and what is not, reading between the lines as to what exactly we're going to end up paying.
All right, of course, several stories that we will continue to follow. Also in the news this week, Trayvon Martin's cell phone, the contents on that, some text messages and pictures have been released. Both of you give me your responses to how you think that those are going to affect the case.
Well, once it's out there, it's out there. So a lot of people that were closely watching this case, I think they're getting a little bit different picture of Trayvon Martin and his character, and I think that could come into play in this if some of these things are allowed. But it's going to be very hard to find a jury who's not going to be knowing about those text messages and about what we have just found out recently.
From the very beginning, it was very important that we allow the justice system to do its job. What hampers the justice system doing its job is the release of this kind of information before a jury has been impaneled. The ultimate effect of this is that it gives prospective jurors insight into a case with information that may not even be presented at trial, but it colors their interpretation of the, quote, victim in this case. I don't think these pictures should have been released at this point, but it's done. It should not have any bearing on the case because, of course, one of the pictures that was released, it was shown that a gun was shown, that a friend of Martin's apparently asked him if he wanted to have a .22. He replied, "Yo," to the text. But what we do know is that Trayvon Martin had no gun at the scene. So that kind of information, while important, while interesting, is not necessarily important to the case.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about hurricane season. It begins on June 1st. In our Action News First Alert Weather Center, Mike Burrish, our chief meteorologist, is predicting that it is going to be a very active, a very busy hurricane season. And we know that this year, $85 million because of sequestration has been cut from the emergency response budget. What do you think that we're going to see this year? If we have a busy hurricane season, the budget's being cut, it kind of sounds like a disaster, doesn't it?
Well, we've already begun to see what the weather is going to do. Obviously, with what is taking place in Oklahoma this past week, what undoubtedly is going to take place in the Midwest, as it does almost every year. We know that those storms are going to get more intense because of shifts in the atmosphere, and yes, to an extent, global warming, which a lot of folks don't want to believe in. But that is beside the point. What we need to do in our cities and towns is to make sure that we're prepared for what could come, and that's more important than worrying about what will come. But are you prepared for what's going to take place?
I think it's a little bit concerning that there are cuts in NOAA and everything that we depend on from that agency. So that's a little bit concerning to me, but we're going to have to see how it's going to shake out. They're saying there's going to be these cuts now, but you know, somehow they find the money and then they reinstate those people.
I don't think any of our politicians will be able to stand back, sequestration or no, and allow no funds to go into a disaster area. We don't know exactly how much money FEMA has, but let me tell you, if it's your house and your street that's blown down and your power lines that are down, you want them to come there. I mean, I was a witness to the last tornado that we had here in Jacksonville several years ago, and I watched it come down US 1, sitting in the back of my house, and let me tell you, it is a scary thing. And everybody had to gather there. All the first responders had to get over there to help out people in that area. I was fortunate in that all I had down was power for a couple of days. But several folks had their homes and businesses destroyed. It is not a fun time.
Absolutely not. Absolutely a good reminder that we all need to be ready. Well, Roxy Tyler with WOKV, thank you for joining us this morning, and also Fred Matthews, blogger for Examiner.com. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.